Welcome to Birken Forest Monastery's live stream. I'm Ajahn Sona. And feel free to put a comment, question in the question bar. And to also just say hello from wherever you are on this planet. Or if you're off the planet, it's all right as well. We like to see the cosmopolitan audience, the worldwide audience, and where you're from. It's fun. And so, and also to say hello to your friends that participate in this little online community. It's really not for the purpose of teaching each other Dhamma, though. You're here to listen to the Q&As of Ajahn Sona. But we will proceed then with the first question, Metta.
Yes, Ajahn. So the first question is from the question bar from Prakash from Palo Alto, California, United States. Is there a recommended curriculum available for new students that begins with fundamental exercises and reading materials? If not, could you please publish one?
Yes, there is. The first place you might want to go is to the webpage, Birken Forest Monastery webpage.
Birken.ca.
Birken.ca. If you type that into Google, it will arrive at our webpage. And there we have a recommended book list of reading materials. And aside from that, we have a full course called the Upasaka course. And it has been developed over a number of years, and it's about 1 year of reading and exercises, questions, and directed study, including Dhamma talks and the basics of Buddhism, the history, the Theravada, the community, relationship to the Sangha of ordained monks and nuns, etc. And so we went thoroughly through it all to give people from a non-Buddhist culture an education, an introduction, because it's very necessary in this new culture that people are coming in from all over the Western world, usually that without familiarity with the Buddhist structures and the Sangha. So this is called the Upasaka program, and we have an archive of all kinds of questions and answers, and there's Upasakas, I think there's hundreds now who have taken the course, and some of them have formed little groups where they get together online or in person, etc. The whole reason behind this is that if you're going to get together as a group or visit a monastery, it's not an open debate society or a religions of the world 101. It's a kind of a designed to have everybody on the same page, have knowledge about a specific tradition and how it works, and then allow you to feel connected, in particular to a specific monastery or a teacher, and the teacher being me. And however, I'm just an example of the forest tradition, and I also have some roots in the Sri Lankan meditative tradition, sutta tradition as well. So it introduces you to the great treasure of the monastic forum and the literature, etc., and the differences to other schools. So one of the features of modernity, especially in the West, is that people undertake a search for meaning or spiritual interest, and they they take a sampling, a smorgasbord of sampling from a little bit of Sufi dancing, some Tai Chi, some yoga, some Rumi poetry, a little Hinduism, a little Buddhism, several schools of Buddhism, throwing all kind of a fruit salad mixed together of ideas and philosophies. Some of them which are in perfect opposition to each other. So having been born and raised in the West without particular affiliation with any religious ideas, I went through all those stages, and I thought, really, I need to offer something that gives you a cohesive, unified approach to a specific type of practice. And so we don't offer a survey of world religions or anything. We say, we presume that you want to explore the Theravada tradition and the meditative tradition and the relationship to the formally ordained Sangha and its lineage, etc. So that's what the Upasaka program does. So let's go on to the next question, Metta.
Yes, Ajahn. The next question from the chat is from Carolina from Venezuela. Dear Ajahn, from the 5 aggregates, could you explain sankharas? Are they our mind habits? How do they relate to karma?
Sankharas are usually translated as volitional formations. And volition is like you make a decision, usually an ethical decision, like something that we would call moral decision. So it's not merely the activities of the mind, but the moral activities of the mind, decision-making processes. And the roots of the word, kara is doing, and sa is together. The prefix sa, sa. So mental activities that create, and it has an indication of multiplicities. By the way, so this she's mentioning khandhas as well. These are groupings of the mind and body. Sankhara, volitional formations, moral activities, decision-making processes, are not separated from the other activities of the mind. Feeling, perception, consciousness is also interactive and pervading this field of volitional formations. And the body is the 5th khandha, the 5th grouping. 5 groupings. They are like spices in a curry. You can't, when they mix 5 spices together, and you can't really separate the flavors. They all interact with each other. We can intellectually separate them, volition, but volition is never separated from perceptions and feelings and, of course, consciousness. How can you have perceptions without consciousness? If you had no consciousness, could you have a perception? If you had no consciousness, could you have a volition? If you have a volition, usually there's an associated feeling tone to it. So that's Vedana, or feelings. And then the feeling tone will influence your next decision in life. If something feels good to you, you may decide to repeat the activity or pursue the course. And if it doesn't feel good, then you may decide to abstain from that feeling or abstain from an activity. So you see the interaction bouncing around between these 5 aspects of what a human is. So that's how it's treated. It's a very sophisticated psychological analysis of what the human mind does, and its interaction with the body as well. It's very advanced. There's nothing like it in the West for many centuries. It's in its full development is in a system called the Abhidhamma, which is abstract thinking and reductionism. In other words, just like science, they take the body apart to its smallest parts and then put it back together and say, this is what a body is, just like science does. You know, we talk about iron in your blood, or at the atomic level, what a body is, etc. They take the mind processes apart as well into their smallest activities. There's two lists of possible states of consciousness. One is 89 states of consciousness. The other one is 121, including special states of consciousness. So you can see that they've really atomized the entire structure of what a human is, and are interested in all the interactions possible between the elements of the mental spectrum and also the bodily spectrum. So this is how it fits into the Buddhist psychology. Yeah.
The next question is from the live stream from Cool Whip. Dear Bhante, due to many worldly reasons, I often feel intense fear and anxiety and fall into addiction endlessly watching YouTube to escape and not face reality. Any advice to get out of this cycle?
Yeah, at least watch this channel. If you're going to, there's nothing intrinsically bad about YouTube. YouTube is just, it's like saying books. YouTube is just a modern library. And there's millions of things on there. There's science, there's trivial entertainment, there's all kinds of things, including Dhamma. So it's just a matter of selecting the material that you want to be engaged with. So be selective about what you watch and what you listen to, and that's the sensible thing to do. And also ask yourself why you're watching and listening to the things. But listening to Dhamma is not harmful, and it can bring you into a state of well-being. And so you just have to be very selective about what you're watching and what you're not watching. So it's deciding what you're not going to watch, what you're not going to listen to, what you are going to. After that, if you feel like you really should get outside and go for a walk in a park or something like that, then schedule it. If you lead this up to just spontaneity, it's a poor way of doing it. You need to structure and schedule yourself. It's like the old practical advice about don't go shopping, grocery shopping when you're hungry. Make a list, and preferably that you make a list after you've eaten. You can make a rational decision about what you are to buy at the store. And then you go, and you only buy what's on the list. You don't do impulse buying. The store, by the way, will have all kinds of strategies for making you buy an extra bag of potato chips or something. They'll place it in certain strategic places. This is the nature of advertising. This is the duty of the seller, is to try to sell the product, and the consumer is to defend themselves against the endless onslaught of people trying to sell you things. So it means that you have to make a schedule for yourself with the billions of media content streaming into your head. You need to realize everybody's trying to sell you something. So you have to select what kind of information you want, and this needs to be done at a lucid time. When you're fully awake, for instance, after you've eaten, when you're not restless, angry, depressed, then you should make a list of things that you don't regret having watched and listened to, that have improved the quality of your life, have informed you in a meaningful way. It's not, by the way, so there's lots of science things and so forth. Is that a good use of your time, just learning how old the Earth is, or how many asteroids are in the Kuiper Belt, or things like this? This is this is facts, etc. But is this really existentially important to the quality of your life? So you're going to have to say, it's admired, like scientific knowledge, mathematical knowledge is admired, but is it really what you should be doing with your life? So you kind of feature and make most important that which is existentially important. That is your emotional well-being and philosophical attitudes to the world, which allow you to be lucid, clear, and well-informed about how your own mind works. So this kind of information can take up a lot of your time, and it's a good use of your time. But you need to narrow the field and prioritize things, and then you actually have to schedule how much you're going to watch, when you're going to watch it. So you need like an alarm clock that goes off and says, time's up, your study period's over, it's now time to go for a walk in the park. Now it's time to go swimming or doing some exercise, etc. So you schedule it like that because you realize your impulse nature is not the way to organize your life. You need to strategize and organize your life in your lucid moments. Write them down and have devices that keep track of the time and so forth, and interrupt your wandering and endless dabbling in various entertainments and trivialities. So that's how you do it, and everybody on the planet will have to do that. Many won't. I would say the vast majority won't. But if you want, by the way, we're not the first ones to think about this. Lots of people have similar types of advice. They may not be coming from the spiritual point of view, but they're regulating their lives. They understand how easy it is to trivialize and waste your time. So you either introduce these structures to help you, or you swim randomly and aimlessly in an endless sea of people trying to sell you things. Okay, next question.
The next question from the chat is from Alex. Dear Ajahn, for the last 5 years, I have been devoted to one-pointed anapanasati practice, living in monasteries and meditating for most of the day. As a consequence, I now experience the hindrances as sharp pains in my body, and the only thing that relieves it is deep samadhi. Many have said that my samadhi is too forceful, but a lighter approach makes me feel dull and won't ease the pain.
Well, if deep samadhi gives you relief, by all means, keep the deep samadhi. And I don't know who's saying it's too forceful, but you really can't get into deep samadhi you can't just force your way into deep samadhi. How deep samadhi arrives is that the preliminary causes have been put in, and then the doors open. It's just maybe what the story of open sesame, the secret word that opens the doors to another realm, is if you don't know the secret word, you can't get in there. In the age of passwords, I need not remind the world of this. I just have to go through this myself. I have this whole booklet of passwords. It's excruciating, but you can't get in there if you don't know the number system and the word. And no matter how hard you wish and try, they won't let you in there. So you need your passwords, you need your codes. So samadhi you are entering samadhi only if you have put the preliminary causes and conditions in. And that's how it works. It's not by tensing up or anything like that. So if samadhi delivers you from this, some pain, etc., that's fine. Now, what about the rest of the time where you're walking around with needles in your eyes? That shouldn't be happening. You need to cultivate to bathe and immerse yourself in just goodwill, friendliness. That's the key for not having the hindrances, as you put them, coming up and stabbing you in the knees and in the arms. These unwholesome psychic irritants are coming up, and you're feeling it through your body, but it, of course, is where you feel it. And how do you overcome that except in samadhi? Well, you introduce the best pain reliever in the world, and that is loving kindness. Loving kindness is the pain reliever. By the way, that's the root of most addictions and compulsions is an attempt to escape from pain. And that pain is usually quite inflamed. The less experience you have of friendliness and safety, the greater the experience of discomfort and pain, which riddles the entire body and feeling complex. And this could go right back to very early experiences in life and in family life and so forth. If you're not acquainted with the idea of safety, true loving kindness and so forth, and hasn't swept through your system. See, loving kindness is not an intellectual activity. It's a full-bodied experience. And it is the ultimate analgesic. It is the ultimate pain reliever. And if you don't have it, if you haven't been exposed to it, if the chemical has not flowed through your body, the chemical of loving kindness, then you will be in a state of discomfort and sort of pain. And people seek relief from that. And of course, it won't be very long until they taste alcohol. And often alcohol will give you a temporary relief from the existential pain of not having a sense of safety and ease, which is characteristic of loving kindness. And then there are other drugs that are even better, opiates, etc. So people take opiates because it relieves the pain. I mean, this seems to be a kind of a revelation of modern drug research, is that, people are addicted because it kills the pain, the emotional pain. Wow, what an amazing thing. But I think it's always been known in every folk song you hear is, I drink to kill the pain, you know. It goes way back into human history. People drink to kill the pain. But there's little analysis of the pain. Why are they in pain? What's missing? Why are they in pain and the other person not in pain? Why are 5%? By the way, so in addiction, especially alcohol, it's supposed to be addictive. You see alcoholics, right? But only 5% of the population is addicted to alcohol. Others socially drink and so forth. Some of course, abstain, which is the Buddha recommends complete abstention from alcohol. All drug taking, except for medical purposes, it should be abstained from. But in the West, a large portion of the population drinks socially but they're not addicted. They're not craving the next drink or anything like that. 5% of the population is. And that that 5% is primarily easing the pain, and they have a specific pain that alcohol addresses. And others are not in enough pain to need the medication all the time. So this is the relationship. So metta, loving kindness, is the way out of this. But you kind of got to re-raise yourself. If you don't have metta, if it wasn't part of your early childhood experience, those circuits are dormant or not known to you, and you're going to have to find out where they are. And you're going to have to go back, in a sense, to being a child. And you're going to have to raise yourself. You're going to have to be both your parent and the child. You're going to have to talk to yourself and have an attitude to yourself which perhaps was missing in your early childhood years, as this kindly person who is protective towards yourself and would do anything to keep harm from coming to yourself, and wants to increase your well-being and happiness. So now you're your own mother or your own father or your own parents, and you have to do the job that perhaps was not properly done by your parents. And the circuits are kind of lying there dormant, and they can be activated, but it's you that has to do it. And you have to, as parents, have to ceaselessly be involved in their child's life in the first, at least 3 years of their life, because it's really important. So you're going to have to, this takes years of cultivation of being a parent to yourself in order to come out the other side and get past the pain of deprivation, of the hindrances. So that is it. Let's go to the next question.
Yes, Ajahn, there are a couple questions in the chat around caffeine and if it's an intoxicant, and I will ask a question from Stares at Trees. I know that I should stop drinking caffeine because it's an intoxicant. However, I can't find motivation to do my job without it because it feels pointless. What should I do?
Yeah, caffeine is the same thing. It can be misused. It seems that I've been interested in this kind of question for, I don't know, the last 40 years or so. About these things that people use in daily life. I had to sort out all these things. Health, caffeine, I mean, coffee itself has a long history, and it seems that Catholic monks are the source of it. In the East, the monks are the source of tea. And Catholic monks are the source of caffeine, or the coffee. The story goes that it was discovered sort of in North Africa that a goat herder noticed that when his goats ate a certain kind of berry-type bush, they were frisky and frolicky, so he brought a handful of these things to an abbot of a monastery and told him about the goat behavior. And the abbot said, it's probably of the devil, and he threw the berries into the fire. And then as they're talking and so forth, they notice it has a delicious aroma. So they fished out the toasted coffee berries, and they smelled lovely, and so they tried to taste them and so forth, and then they eventually found them in beverages, and it kept them, helped them be awake during their midnight prayers and so forth. So this became adopted. So the story goes. I have no idea how the truth of that or not, but it made its way eventually through the Middle East and eventually into Europe, and regarded with suspicion at first. In France, in the I think 17th century, the king called a doctor to examine this substance, And the doctor was quite a Orthodox Catholic practitioner and suspicious of such things. And he said, well, it can be taken, but only with milk, so that it's a kind of a food, so that you have your cafe au lait on a physician's recommendation. So it's being regarded with suspicion. In modern times, of course, there's been various claims that caffeine is bad for you or coffee is bad for you. And then other times, now in present time, it seems that it's good for you, but only in moderate doses. It seems to be good for you, but obviously not too much. So you need to go back to 1 cup of coffee in the morning. And okay, you can have one after lunch as well. And that's it. That probably will do you good, but it won't move into the negative character where people are drinking 15 cups a day. This is crazy. 20 cups a day. This is insane. This is terrible. 1, 2 cups, not too late in the day. That's good. Then you'll get a decent night's sleep, etc. Yeah. Next question.
Yes, Ajahn. The next question is from Chris from Fremont, California, United States. Dear Ajahn, where does the fault-finding mind come from, and how can we stop suffering from it?
Yes, this is a there's a nice explanation by the Buddha, and it's called there's a word, yoniso manasikara. Well, it's more than one word. It's 2 words. Yoniso manasikara. In brief, wise attention, attention to the things of the world, informed by wisdom. And there's the opposite, ayoniso manasikara, unwise attention, activities of the mind which are unwisely directed. And so seeing, exaggerating the fault or focusing on the fault unwisely is one way of making yourself unhappy. Primarily, you will experience aversion or irritability or anger or even hate because you're unwisely focusing on the fault. By the way, it's not that a wise person does see there are faults in people and in the world, and there are positives in people and other things in the world as well. But they don't inform these judgments with negative emotions. And the 2 primary negative emotions are aversion and desire, or like anger and desire. Emotional ill will and emotional craving. So they can make judgments, but they don't bring feelings into the judgment. A person makes a mistake, and quite often they're almost rewarded for these. For you go to school or university, and if you can diagnose the faults of the political system or the society, and you can be even quite emotional about it. You can be outraged by certain, lack of civil kind of structures and so forth. Injustices in the world are accompanied by outrage. You see the fault, and you're outraged by it. You're angry about it. It makes you depressed. You're saddened by it, etc. So this is you're actually applauded for this attitude. Unfortunately, it's unwise. But usually the world sees the only other alternative is apathy. So you don't care, or you're too callous to be sensitive to this, or you just simply don't care. You're just preoccupied with your own life and you don't care about anything. they don't see that there's another viable strategy, and that is you see the situation, but you don't introduce negative emotions into your system. You can see that there's injustice in the world, but you don't have to inflict torment on yourself because of that. It's not a wise thing to do. Why would you do that? So that's unwise attention to the fault. And it's unwise because you introduce negative emotions into your system pointlessly. You can correct faults in the world and faults in yourself and faults in other people, fueled by the emotion of creativity, of playfulness, of love, of interest, of curiosity. Most of the great things that are done in the world, revisions of whole political systems or introductions of psychotherapy and so forth, they're not promoted or created out of outrage. They're created out of curiosity, playfulness, creativity, love. And those are very good motives for dealing with the inevitable problems of the world. So, yeah, one has to say, oh, I'm a smart person. I've been rewarded for finding faults in everything. And quite often, this is the parallel to intelligence, actually. Intelligence can find faults. It finds the mistakes in things. And it is parallel to the aversive personality, to the angry personality. Intelligence and fault-finding quite often go hand in hand, but it's unnecessary. The one problem that the intelligence is lacking in that it has not chosen to be intelligent and motivated by goodwill, which does not damage your system, does not make you depressed, etc. You're not walking around angry about everything. There's all kinds of craziness going on in the world, and in the present world is rather a little bit out of joint. It's not bad compared to the ancient world, where they were really going in and just slaughtering everybody, including the dogs and the cats, and graphically torturing people in horrific ways. It's probably better now, but still full of lunacy and distorted ideas. But you can live in this world aware of these things without toxic emotions. And it doesn't mean that you don't care. It means that you care wisely. So that's the way you got to think. I care wisely. Yeah. Let's go to the next question.
Yes, Ajahn. The next question is from Alex from Ithaca, New York, United States. Why is it that Sankara conditions Vijnana in the 12 links of dependent origination? How could a mental formation condition the field in which it occurs?
Well, that's a kind of a astrophysicist's analysis of the mind. Well, it's just a way of looking at things, cause and effect. Is the cause really separated from the effect? Even in the world of physics, is the cause really somehow different than the effect? Or are they really a single event? Is a rocket propelled by its fuel, or is the fuel and the rocket a single activity? So volition and consciousness. So Alex used the word the sankhara, which is volition. I talked about this earlier. Volition, decision-making, moral decision-making especially. It changes your consciousness. What is consciousness? Consciousness is that which perceives sights, sounds, smells, tastes, touches, and the mental world is the experience of some form of reality. And it is reshaped by volitions. So when you make a choice in life, when you decide to do something, in one direction or another, you've taken a path. There's two ways to go. There's a branch in the path. If you go to the right, the experiences that you have in the future will be what you can experience on that path rather than the one on the left path. So you've made a path, a choice in a forked road, and it will change your experience in the future of all the things that you have. And by the way, it will also feed back on itself and change your decisions in the future. So you decided to go to a course on the history of Mexico or something like this. And now, because you made that choice, you're going to get different information, and your next time you visit Mexico, you're going to see it in a different way. And then because you see it in a different way, you're going to make different choices in your explorations, or what hotel you go to, or what city you go to, and so forth. This is just a feedback loop. Volitions influence and alter your consciousness, and your consciousness then is a body of information from which your new choices are selected. It becomes the basis of your new map by which you navigate from. You've modified, by making a decision, you've modified the map. Now the next decision is based on the modified map. And that will further modify the map. And your next decision will be based on the newly modified map. So it's just a little back and forth like that. Yeah.
The next question from the live stream is from Quaisitor from Melbourne, Australia. Is the duration of life in higher realms predestined, or does it depend on karma?
In certain realms, it's set lifespans. In others, it's variable. The human life, the lifespan of humans is variable. And the lifespan in what we would call animal realm is variable. So some humans live very short time, some 100 years or more. Same with animals. So this is a variable realm. Once you get up into the heavenly realms, there's less variability. Why are human lives variable? Because so many ways to damage the human body and so forth, diseases and animal bodies. Now think about it as navigating on Earth, driving in traffic and so forth. All of the ways that things can go wrong in the two dimensions of the roadway. And then in some ways, there's less possibilities to go wrong in three dimensions. So if you're flying, there's actually more space to navigate in. Now, if you go out of the atmosphere into space, these orbits are just pretty well predetermined. There's nothing to interfere with your structure, your orbit. So this is what the heavens are. There is no opportunity for a war to go on in the heavens, or some accident because the buildings are not properly engineered, or some earthquakes, etc. So you're in a place where there's no disease and so forth. So that basically it still ends. It is not eternal, but it's determined by lifespan. And the lifespans are very similar. In the lower heavens, by the way, though, karma can play out. It is possible to get angry in some of the lower sensory heavens. And that anger, if it's of a certain type, can end the life of the being who's finally made it into the lower sensory heavens. This is so from the Abhidhamma they claim that if one falls into anger in those realms, then the lifespan is shortened or terminated. Your death in heaven comes by anger. And so the next level up is anger as being is not possible to get into the higher realms, and so they're very determined. They're fixed lengths of lifespan, and then karma exhausts. It's not predestined. It's you karmically arrive at it. It's like a low orbit in space. The spaceship falls back into the atmosphere at a certain amount of time, a fairly short time. But if the orbit is very, very high, out of the gravitational field, it can go on for millions of years, perhaps even billions. And so the higher heavens are like gravitation-free levels, where the orbit is fixed. But you have to get there first. The fuel that gets you into the high orbit is karmic. And the vipaka, the fruits of this, is the result of good, very positive karma, and you stay in that situation for, enormous lengths of time, because there is no force pulling you back into lower dimensions. The same happens in the depths of the lowest realms. It's like a black hole you fall into. It can last. The gravitational field is so heavy that you can't rise from it for indefinite lengths of time, and it's it's not vague. It's very predetermined. It's in the middle where you have a lot of variability. So the human realm, the animal realm, and the ghost realm are highly variable in their lifespans. The lower heavens are of much less variability and very pleasant, very predetermined, and the higher heavenly realms are extraordinarily long and virtually without any variability, and the very deep hellish realms are also determined and subject to very little variability, and they also last a long time. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Yes, Ajahn, we have another question from Melbourne, Australia, which, gosh, it must be early there. This is from the People's Elbow. Dear Ajahn Sona, what suggestions does the Buddha recommend when one is trying to move from the stage of Sotapana to the age of Sakodagami?
To the age?
To the stage. Sorry.
To the stage of Sakodagami. It's primarily meditation. So, jhana meditation. Sotapana is the first stage of enlightenment. And there are still things remaining. Anger and greed still remains in the first stage of enlightenment. But some insight has arisen, which you're now is pretty well irreversible. You can't unsee what you saw. And still, you may be lingering in that stage, unable to get further along. So at this point, you need to cultivate more of samadhi. This happens as well with the second stage, the Sakodagami, second stage of enlightenment. In order to get to the third stage, Anagami, the non-returner stage, again, what is required is a development of jhana. The eighth factor of the Eightfold Path needs to be worked on in order to push, to accelerate the process. It seems that there is enough focus, concentration to have gotten the basic glimpse of the truth. For the Sotapana, the first stage of enlightenment, the eye of Dhamma has opened. You've seen the situation, but it's not driving you clearly to the next stage. This is kind of like in sports, where a person has some talent. They've been able to perform a backwards 1.5 off the 1 meter board, but they can't make the next, they can't do a 2.5. So what will a coach work on? Just having them repeat it? No. Their legs are not strong enough. So they have to do leg exercises in order to increase the elevation and to increase the spin so that they can do this. So that there are certain times, this is with sports, they will work exclusively on upper body strength or lower body strength in order to get to the next stage. It's not the exercise itself. It allows you to move on to the next stage. So this is the also intellectual pursuits. You might be quite bright and so forth, but you get to a certain stage at university in math or something like that, but your ability to sustain concentration over a long enough period of time is inadequate. So you got the basic concepts, but you party too much, or you can't pay attention long enough to absorb the information. So you kind of hit the ceiling. Well, in that case, it's not the intellect. It's sustained concentration which needs to be improved. So you need to stop entertaining and sidelining yourself. You can't go to the parties anymore. You can't frivolously stay up till 3 a.m. laughing and watching the Three Stooges and so forth. You need to shape your hours and be wider awake and understand that you need to persist in over a longer period of time in focusing. And that's the key that will push you into the next level of the game. Okay, let's go to the next question.
Yes, Ajahn. The next question from the live chat is from Neurodivergence from Poland. Dear Ajahn, are meditators protected from harm in some ways? I grew up in a pretty violent environment, and I wonder if having a non-violent attitude protects us from harm, like physical attacks.
Well, loving kindness, there are 11 benefits to loving kindness, and some of them are, one is protected from fire, weapons, and poison. Yeah. So the cultivation of peace and loving kindness can be protective. It protects you from fire, weapons, and poison, but maybe that shouldn't be taken too literally. Fire is anger. Weapons is fire is desire. Weapons are hostility, are your own anger, and poison is a delusion, like lack of concentration. So this serene goodwill will protect you from your own from the violence we do to ourselves. And frequently the violence that we do to ourselves brings violence from others as well. So if you're angry and arguing, you jump out of the road rage, So road rage sometimes is mutual. So you initiate it and somebody beats you up on the side of the road. However, we see that people who are completely innocent and so forth are also beat up on the side of the road as well. All that we can say is that after you've been beat up, you will probably be able to let go of the residual resentment, fear, hostility sooner, and that will prevent your own violence to yourself. And this is, of course, the famous passage in the Dhammapada. He beat me, he abused me, he threw me down and robbed me. Live with such thoughts and you live in hate. Now, if you live in hate, it's as if this person is still beating you, abusing you, throwing you down and robbing you. So you're doing it to yourself at that point. And the next stanza is, he beat me, he abused me, he threw me down and robbed me. Abandon such thoughts and live in non-hate, in non-fear. This is the law, ancient and inexhaustible. You must abandon this hate. No matter what is done to you, the violence that is done to you, if you abandon your resentment and hatred, you will not further injure yourself with this. So that is the protective quality of goodwill, and the damaging quality of ill will. Yeah. Okay, we have time for one more question.
Okay, Ajahn. The last question for today is from Upasaka Mustafa from Iran. Dear Ajahn, could you clarify how thoughts relate to each aggregate? How does a thought manifest as form? For example, mental imagery or inner talk, influence Vedana, shape perception, and then categorize as sankhara. Please explain this interplay. And if possible, please make a series about the 5 aggregates.
Yeah, thank you, Mustafa, for the suggestion. I should actually, I don't think I've systematically given talks about the 5 khandhas, and I'm running out of things to say because I've been talking for the last 35 years, and I've covered a lot of tops. I need fresh topics. Yeah, I should talk about that. This is where this area called Abhidhamma is very important. The interaction between the khandhas, between feelings, consciousness, perceptions, and volitions. And then the body is brought into this too, because we have 2 kinds of feelings: one, bodily feelings, bodily sensations, and then what we would call emotional sensations. We feel emotional sensations in the body, but we also feel it sort of in the mental space. There are 3 kinds of feelings: pleasant, neutral, and unpleasant, both in the bodily types and in the mental types. In the Abhidhamma, they unravel every possibility. So guess what? There are 108 types of feelings. Shall I go into all 108? Well, it's not that hard. Or we could say there's only 2 types of feelings. There's pleasant and not pleasant. So there's a famous story about 2 Dhamma enthusiasts that one is a monk and one's a layperson, and they're both enthusiasts, and they're having a conversation. And the monk says, the Buddha has declared there's only two feelings. There's pleasant and unpleasant. And the layperson said, well, I heard him say there's 3. There's pleasant, neutral, and unpleasant. Oh, no, I heard him clearly say there's just 2. And so they say, well, let's go and talk to the Buddha and see. It must be a nice time when you can just go and talk to the Buddha, And they say, we have this disagreement. I heard you say there's only 2 feelings, and he heard you say there's only 3. Which is it? And he says, both. I said both of those things. There's 2 types. One is pleasant and not pleasant, but there's also 3 types. There's pleasant, and then there's 2 types of not pleasant ones, painful and neutral. They're both not the one that is pleasant. So you could see it either way. And in fact, then he proceeds to say that there are 108, and then he lists off the 108 possibilities. So they really analyze this to the atomic level. And the interaction, the ping pong, bouncing back and forth between a volition is accompanied by a feeling tone. So when you make a decision, it also there's a perception involved in the decision. You think you're walking through the Canadian forests, and you think you see a black bear. By the way, this happens. I spend so many, 60 years walking around in the Canadian forests. No, more. And one of the things, especially in this area, there are black bears, and you have to be quite conscious of this because you can frequently have encounters. And the characteristic is that you see dark shadows. Now, the pine forests are full of these dark shadows. One of the mistakes that you make is a burnt stump, and there are lots of burnt stumps. A stump is this a burnt stump is a black shape, and you'll be amazed how you perceive that as a black bear, and then after a few seconds you realize, oh, it's not a black bear, it's a burnt stump. Now, what feeling would be connected with that? At first, caution, fear, concern, and then as the perception of the stump, that it's not a bear, it's a stump, relief, ease, indifference, and then it reflects on itself as interesting that I perceived it as a bear. Interesting, because I didn't plan to do that. It just was automatic. And you have to then meditate on how automatic you are responding to things and how you are overlaying perception on things as well. And so this is how this ricochets around between the khandhas. And this is what Abhidhamma does, is explores the ricocheting around there. But the Abhidhamma is the third collection of the Tripitaka. It's approximately 6,000 pages long. You can get a brief version of it in what's called the Compendium of Abhidhamma, which is probably a couple hundred pages long and gives you charts, graphs, and it's like a chemistry tables, diagrams of the cosmology of the 32 realms of the universe, or etc. This is what this type of analysis would be of that. That's where you would get the information on that. Okay, so we're at the end of our hour today, and we will see you next week if we are here for that.